Okay, so today there's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about. I'm going to start off with the Solomon Asch experiment, which is arguably, in my view, the greatest experiment ever conducted in the behavioral sciences and in psychology. Of course, the Zimbardo experiment is a great one. Of course, the Stanley Milgram one is a great one. But Solomon Asch is beautiful for two reasons. Number one, it is incredibly simple and elegant in its design. And yet, number two, it demonstrates something unbelievably powerful about a universal phenomenon, and that is the astounding cowardice of people when it comes to succumbing to herd mentality, to succumbing to group conformity. So, for those of you who don't remember or have never heard of it, the experiment goes as follows. You bring in people into the lab, you sit them down, let's say 8 of them. The first 7 that are seated are actually in on the experiment. They're Confederates, but they're pretending to be really actual subjects. It's only the 8th person in that queue that is the actual subject. And you basically show them the following stimulus. You show them 3 lines, let's call them A, B, C, and then separated from those 3 lines, you show them another line, call it X. And the idea is for them to each state which of the 3 lines, A, B, or C, is the same length as line X. And the way that the experiment is set up is that it is absolutely clear, short of a person being legally blind, completely blind, congenitally blind. It should be obvious for anybody to see which of the lines. So, for example, line B is clearly the one that is the same length as X. Lines A and C are way longer and way shorter than B. Okay? And yet, what we're going to do here in the experiment is we're going to ask each of the first 7 people, we're going to poll them verbally. Please tell us which of the lines A, B, C is the same as X. And they're each going to give the wrong answer. And the goal is to then see whether the 8th actual person is going to succumb to the pressure. The first 7 have all said, yeah, it's line A. Line A is 1 millimeter. The real one is 50 times longer, but yet don't believe your lying eye. And of course, the power of the experiment is that if even one person had conformed, it would be a big story. But of course, the news is that many people conform, which now brings me, by the way, this is the power of being psychologically trained by having a background in understanding human psychology and behavioral science, is that you could take any phenomenon that you see, current events, and then you could link it to what is the underlying mechanism that explains it. I don't know if anybody knows where I'm going with this. In the things that are pissing me off, I didn't have enough room to put all of the things that are pissing me off in today's session, but I put Malcom Gladwell first. So I don't know if you know where I'm going with this. A clip just came out, a 49-second clip where he basically says, yeah, in retrospect, it was wrong of me to say that it is totally correct for transgender athletes, meaning men, to compete with women, right? And then at the end he says, I can't remember the exact line. He says like something like, I was wrong, but objectively true. Or I can't remember the exact thing he said, which is just baffling. It's basically saying, if my grandmother had balls, we would have called her my grandfather. Or when Sam Harris said, if everything that I said about COVID had not come out exactly opposite to what I had said, so if everything that I was wrong on, I had been right on, then I would have been right. So it's a type of epistemological chutzpah where I'm never going to fully admit that I was wrong, and so I'm going to cook it. And he says, I'm now ashamed that I realize now that no, it's not fair for men to compete with women, and yeah, of course there are differences. The Solomon Asch experiment again was very powerful in showing that you could get people to go against what their eyes are clearly showing you. Okay, and I'm probably going to write an article on this. Well, there is nothing clearer on earth than the fact that human beings are a sexually dimorphic species made up of two sexes called male and female. The fact that intersex people exist and the fact that people have gender dysphoria and we no longer use the term hermaphrodites, but all of these things happen not because they're part of the richness of the panoply of human phenotypes. It's because they are anomalies, right? People are born with less than 10 fingers or more than 10 fingers. We don't say that there is finger fluidity and finger diversity. I've already written about this. In The Parasitic Mind, I've put out Saad truth clips about it. I've been screaming about this for decades. I appeared in front of the Canadian Senate in 2017 to warn people. But Malcolm Gladwell, now why am I pissed off at Malcolm Gladwell? Because number one, he is part of a new species. The new species are called the invertebrate castrati. He doesn't have a spine. He's a mollusk. He doesn't have testicles. He reproduces asexually. He's not part of sexual reproduction. And therefore, when Malcolm Gladwell, who's published books that have sold millions of copies, where he just takes, by the way, the research that guys like me spend decades doing, repackages them, weaves a cute story, that's good, that's fine. Look, if you're a good storyteller and you could sell a narrative, great. If it could get people to read books, more power to you. But with a big platform comes great responsibilities. So you, Malcolm Gladwell, have made millions of dollars peddling your stuff to people. People trust you. And then you went everywhere and said, there is no advantage that men have over women, other than the fact that our biological sex is inscribed in our genes, in our every cell, in our chromosomes. There are anatomical differences, morphological differences, physiological differences, hormonal differences, behavioral differences. Perhaps the most common finding in when it comes to any demographic variables is how pervasive sex differences are. And until 15 minutes ago, the 117 billion people who had existed on Earth, that's a real estimate, all of them knew exactly how to navigate the very difficult conundrum of what constitutes male and female. But Malcolm Gladwell, the little punk, the little girly girl, was too weak to say, are you out of your fucking mind? You're saying that men don't have an advantage over women? What kind of moron are you? No. He chastised those like me who said, no, you're insane and I won't go on your insane train. So now it's changed. The winds are changing. And therefore, he could no longer hang on to the delusion, which he knows in the depth of his heart that it's wrong. So now he comes out and says, yeah, I mean, fuck those women that were cheated out of all those medals. I was too weak to defend them. Fuck those 8-year-old girls that had to see penises, vaginas in the shape of penises. Because again, he explained to us that it's not your genitalia that determines your sex. He's much smarter than that until Biden and Harris were the administration. But when Orange Himmler came along, it was no longer cool to say that, of course, 6'4", women named Tony yesterday with 9-inch penises can be totally women, and therefore it's completely reasonable for them to take showers with your 12-year-old daughters. It's just two prepubescent girls, one of whom is 6'4", named Tony, with big massive balls and a big schlong. But she's a girl, Tony. So that's what Malcolm Gladwell did, but it is no longer okay to say that. So he comes out and goes, yeah, okay, I guess I was lying, but in a truthful manner. So F you, Malcolm Gladwell. You're a piece of you-know-what. All right, let's move on. I got 10 items here. I'm only on number 2, so I'm just warming up, people. And, forgive me, I know that I'm Professor Dr. Gatsad and so on, but there's something very liberating in dropping a few F-bombs in these things that piss me off. So, yes, when I go give a talk at Stanford, I don't drop F-bombs, but I am a multifaceted creature. I was also as Jesse Waters recently explained to the world, a world-class soccer player, so I could mix it up in the locker room. Okay, so get ready for maybe 1 or 2 other F-bombs. Oh, let's now come to Coldplay. Oh, yes, Coldplay. There are maybe 1 or 2 songs that I could barely stand, so they're okay. They're not auditory jihad like the Beatles. They're not unbearable like Elvis Presley. They're not auditory degenerates like Taylor Swift. I mean, has there ever been a less talented human being, than Taylor Swift? Can't dance. Forgive me, but not particularly attractive. Has the sex appeal of my coffee mug. Can't sing, but yet she's the biggest star. She's such a star. She's a queen. Her and Beyonce are the 2 queens, and we're just lucky to exist in their era. Thank you, queens. All right, so Coldplay has this habit at their concert, as I understand it. And if my wife saw me at a Coldplay concert with a really, really beautiful girl from the Dominican Republic, she's just a co-worker, so don't worry about it, sweetie. She's just a co-worker. It's platonic. Anyways, so Coldplay brings out a person from the stands, from the audience that has some sort of sign, and in this case, he brought out 2 young women and said, "Hey, where are you ladies from?" And they said, "Oh, we're from. Oh, you ready? This is tough to say. We're from Israel." And then the crowd started booing, boo, boo. And then he said, "Well, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, you're Israeli. I mean, you're human too. You're human. I mean, you're Israeli, but you're human." So I just wanted to say that I'm touched because a lot of my family lives in Israel. I always thought of them as, subhuman degenerates because, as the noble Quran explains to us, Jews are descendants of monkeys and pigs. So I didn't think that we were fully human. But the fact that Professor Dr. Coldplay confirmed on his show that Israelis, including my family, are, really, they're human. So that felt good. That I'm glad I got his imprimatur. And of course, he right away then said, "Oh, but also we welcome all the people from Palestine here," because you can't just say hello to people from Israel without recognizing this other made-up people called Palestinian that, oh, by the way, didn't exist until the 1960s when Yasser Arafat created them. There is such a thing as Jordanian people. There is such a thing as Egyptian people. There is no such thing as Palestinian people. By the way, Palestinian people, prior to the creation of Israel, were more likely to be associated with Jews. So I know Jews of a certain, age who will say they're Palestinian. They're from Palestine, pre-Israel, right? They're Palestinian Jews. So whenever, for example, you say we are against Jew hatred, you always have to say, but we really have to fight against Islamophobia, because the real threat around the world is Islamophobia. Okay, so Coldplay, F off. Now we come next to Mohammad Fakih. You ready? Oh, yes. I don't know if any of you know this. So the highest, I guess one of the highest civilian, maybe the highest one that you could receive in Canada. Canada, by the way, we are so kind. We are so egalitarian that we don't believe in having Canadian citizens be knighted. Even though we are under the dominion of the royal family, even though we are part of the Commonwealth, Canada, as far as I know, is the only country in the Commonwealth where you cannot be knighted, but we have the Order of Canada. So if you get the Order of Canada, you would then, you put your name and then comma OC for Order of Canada. It's a title that comes after your name. Well, Mohammad Fakih, who came to Canada in 1999, rah-rah, pro-Hamas, pro-Saad. He put out a tweet on August 25th. I'm going to read it to you verbatim. On behalf of literally every Canadian of conscience, if you are a Canadian and a supporter of Israel, you do not have basic human values, let alone Canadian values. Your tweets and messages are saved and known to all of us. They live. Some might not comment around you because they are polite or respectful of whatever role you have in society, or just don't want to roll in the mud with you. But know this, your lack of Canadian and human values will never be forgotten. You got that? So Muhammad, who came here from Lebanon, my home country, in 1999, who built a lot of shawarma shops, and therefore he's deserving of the Order of Canada, probably doesn't have anything to do with Islamophilia or diversity, inclusion, equity, because I could probably list 100 academics off the top of my head that would be a lot more worthy, Canadian academics who are worthy of the Order of Canada more than this shawarma guy. But he decided that if you support Israel, then you not only you don't have Canadian values, you're not part of the human family. And so I went and I just started trolling him endlessly and so on, and he got all upset. But then I want to show you something from where is it? I don't have it here, but I put up one of my satirical tweets where I said, dear Muhammad, I would like to report some family members who, who are wearing Stars of David and so on. They're Canadian subhumans. Some of them have even been to Israel, whatever. It was one of my Gad satire things. So completely satire. I am satirizing his Jew hatred. X put limits. They censored me because they said that I was promulgating hate. So I wrote to them. As you know, I'm good friends with Elon. Elon owns X, but I didn't want to bother Elon with it. So I wrote privately to my X contact, said, guys, are you fucking insane? I am satirizing hatred towards Israel. I am satirizing hatred towards Jews. Who are you saying I'm being hateful to? I'm Jewish. I said, yeah, but if you use satire that still appears as though it's mocking a people, then we can't allow it. So just imagine how chilling that is. All of the content that I post that is satirical, in the Parasitic Mind, I talk about the power of satire and why dictators will kill the satirists first. Well, here is X saying, I don't care if you are satirizing and mocking intense Jew hatred. My algorithm can't differentiate between making fun of the Jew haters and the Jew haters, so F off Jew. So that's another thing that's pissing me off. Let's put that away. Okay, that's done. Mohammad Fakih has done. All right, let's come next to Cowardice. Remember earlier I said what caused Malcolm Gladwell to not believe or deny the most fundamental marker of our existential reality, namely that there is such a thing as male and female and all of the differences that ensue. Cowardice is exactly the reason why the West is where it is. I mean, yes, there is parasitized minds bathing in suicidal empathy, and I really do hope that all of you will go out and pre-order Suicidal Empathy the second that it comes out. Based on all the indications, it's going to smash records. It's going to make Parasitic Mind seem like it was nothing. And that one sold a lot of copies. So I hope that you will support those who put everything on the line to defend our societies from all of the encroachment that we're seeing. Well, anyways, so Cowardice was very, very nicely displayed in a story that I recently described on a Sad Truth episode, but I'd like to repeat it here because it really, truly did piss me off. I reached out to two antiquarian booksellers, one of whom I just had a chat with today, that was one of the greatest guests I've ever had on my show. I will be posting our chat probably in the next few days. This guy is unbelievable. His name is Tom Ailing, young guy. I've never seen such passion in someone. I mean, if you want to see what you should look like when you're talking about your profession, watch my chat with Tom Ailing. So that was one antiquarian bookseller that agreed to come on my show and came through. We had a wonderful chat. Another antiquarian bookseller who even has a much bigger platform, I reached out to him and he said, "Oh, sure, okay, I'll come on your show to discuss books." Then he must have gone to do a bit of a deep dive on me, saw that, I have, what's that called? Oh, a spine. Oh, what's those things called? Oh, balls, testicles. And that scared him a lot. So he came back to me. I won't read his message, but he basically said, "Look, I've got a very large TikTok following. I've got a very large Instagram following, and I stay away from any political issues. And therefore, I'm going to reject coming and talking to you, even though we'd only be talking about books, because, well, I don't want it to harm my following." So I wrote back to him. I'm going to read to you what I wrote back. I'm not going to mention his name. "Thank you for your email. That we will not get a chance to have an informative and fun conversation about books is disappointing, but not nearly as disappointing as your self-serving cowardice. I have been a professor for 32 years. I've had to incur endless personal and professional costs because of my dogged defense of Western liberties and freedoms. I receive countless death threats because a wide range of enemies of reasons are unhappy with my words and ideas, etc. As a lover of books, I would have thought that you would be the first to appreciate that without a committed defense of our freedoms and liberties, books would not exist. Respectfully, GS," for God's Saad. Now, why did that piss me off? Do I give a shit that I'm not talking to him? Well, not really. I'm sure we would have had a great conversation. But he perfectly represents what's wrong with the West. He perfectly represents what happens when people decide, "I will not put myself forward in any way and contribute to the battle to protect our societies." Imagine the courage of the young boys who said, "Yeah, I'll go and land on the beaches of Normandy, and I know that I'm likely to die and be mowed down like a little insignificant mosquito by the Nazi machine guns. I'll go, I'll do it. It's worth fighting for this." Imagine Tillman. I had a clip where I mentioned Tillman. Remember Pat Tillman, who had a multi-million-dollar NFL contract, big star in the NFL. After 9/11 happened, he said, "Screw my being a star in the NFL. Screw my multi-million-dollar a year contract. I'm going to fight in Afghanistan," and so on, to kill those who harmed us on 9/11. And guess what? He lost his life. Okay? Be like Pat Tillman. Don't be like this antiquarian asshole. Now, speaking of such cowardice, I wanted to bring up another coward. This is a scientist, highly respected scientist, one that I love in terms of his scientific work, in terms of his writing. He's a hardcore evolutionist. We couldn't be more in perfect intellectual complicity, him and I. But apparently he suffers from Trump derangement syndrome. I, on the other hand, I'm Canadian, by the way, right? Remember? So it's not as though I voted for Trump, but I certainly don't walk around all day saying that Trump is an existential crisis. I don't walk around all day saying that Trump is going to eat our children. Well, he was supposed to come on my show, which I would have loved to host him because, as I said, it would be a historic conversation, and it would be a conversation which I would specifically, if that's what he wanted, I would completely restrict it to evolutionary theory, to evolutionary psychology, to public understanding of science. But then I found out that through a very reliable source, a mutual friend of ours, that he decided not to come on my show because some people had told him that, "Be careful, Gad Saad, while you may love him, you may admire him, Gad Saad doesn't seem to dislike Donald Trump in the requisite way that any sane person should reject Donald Trump. Therefore, this person, whom I held in the highest intellectual esteem, expressly decided, I will not talk to Gad Saad because he doesn't hate Donald Trump enough, right? I'm not in Donald Trump's administration. I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but I don't walk around all day saying Donald Trump is an existential threat and the lobotomized, degenerate cackler Kamala Harris would have been a much better president. She would have been amazing. She can't finish a sentence. She's got the intelligence of my elliptical. Probably not as intelligent because my elliptical has some sort of AI system in it. So it has some form of intelligence, much more so than that degenerate cackler. But the fact that I didn't agree with him politically, by the way, he's not American himself, meant that he couldn't associate with me. That's what cowardice is. That's how societies are lost. Let's go on. I'm about halfway through, people. Okay, let's talk about chunky yogurt. Who's chunky yogurt, you say? It's Cenk Uygur. I'm very, very good. Maybe better than Donald Trump at coming up with really cool names. AOC is occasional cortex. Now, someone said that someone else had come up with that name. I don't know who that, I mean, I know who that person is, but I didn't know that they came up with that name. So believe me, I am taking credit for occasional cortex. I've written papers on human neuroscience and the brain imaging technique. So it's not as though I don't know what a cortex is. And so therefore, occasional cortex, AOC, is mine. And chunky yogurt is that fat pig, the Turkish guy who named, right? He named his show The Young Turks, which is not really a very nice thing to name in homage to the Armenian genocide. My wife is Lebanese Armenian, so it may not be very nice. But of course, all he does all day is get angry at Israel this, Jews that, Palestinians are noble, Palestinian, boo-hoo-hoo, and so on. All day long. So I've been doing this for decades. Tommy Robinson has been doing this for decades in terms of, warning about the grooming gangs in Britain, and the numbers now are up to 1 million young British girls. The earlier number I was quoting was 250,000. 250,000 over a 30-year period have been gang raped, groomed by pedophiles. I'm not going to get into what they did to those girls, okay? But now, of course, Elon Musk has come into the scene and has become very aware. And of course, Elon Musk has the biggest platform from which to speak. And so as Elon and I, are sharing all this stuff about, Muhammad who raped this girl and Muhammad who raped that girl and Mahmoud and Ahmad and Hussein and Ali and Jihad, right? Chunky Yogurt comes out and says, oh, but you can't comment about you remember, there's this Israeli guy who apparently was trying to lure to meet a 15-year-old girl for an intimate encounter, and then when he was caught, he fled to Israel, right? Now, of course, that doesn't mean that he shouldn't be punished for what he's done, right? Any guy who is seeking to have sex with minors of any religion or no religion should be properly punished. So nobody is questioning that. But why is it that the 1 million girls who have been systematically, right? This is industrial scale level thing, up and down Britain, endless cities. Just go and look it up. Just do grooming rape gangs. There are government reports, there are academic reports, there are journalist reports, up and down of Britain. He won't comment about that. But there is an Israeli guy. So I wrote to him and I basically said, hey, are you familiar with this concept called scale? Yes, one Israeli is a degenerate and should be punished accordingly. By the way, he solicited. He didn't even have an encounter with her. Not that solicitation of a minor is not a serious crime in of itself. But the other guys have a girl who's 12 years old who they drug her, put her in a house, and for 6 weeks gang rape her 40 guys. That didn't trigger his ire, because he's Muslim and they're Muslim. There's really one problem. It's the Jew. That's why I always say, yeah, but Epstein was Jewish. That pisses me off. Be a fucking human being. When I saw 1,500 men being walked to their execution at the border of the Euphrates River by ISIS, those men that they put bullets in were young Muslim men. But I was livid. I was angry because I saw how passively and with complete resignation they were being led to a bullet in the head. And I sat there trembling with anger for them. My mind didn't calculate, which, by the way, I cover all this in my forthcoming book, Suicidal Empathy. My mind didn't say, oh, but they're not Jewish, the ones who are getting killed. Therefore, I don't care. That's not how my moral compass works. That's not how my empathy works, right? A victim is a victim, irrespective of who they are. A pedophile is a pedophile, irrespective of who they are. But Chunky Yogurt doesn't recognize that. So fuck him. Okay, next. Switching here. I'm going a bit all over the place here. You ready? Now, fair warning, this is a big spoiler alert. If you don't want to hear what the kind of the punchline of this Netflix documentary, turn away now. Yesterday, I watched, I think it's called Unknown Number. I don't know what, the high school catfishing story or something like that, where a young girl, I don't know, 12 years old, 13 years old, starts receiving for the next 2 years astoundingly nasty messages, sexual messages, kill yourself, you're a disgusting pig, no man is ever going to want you, you've got a flat ass, why don't you just save us all the trouble and kill yourself already for 2 years. They're trying to, now again, fair warning, if you don't want to know the results, if you don't want to know the punchline, if you don't want to know who did it, turn away now for the next maybe 5 minutes or so. Okay, so I've warned you. Spoiler alert. It turns out that the person sending those messages was her biological mother. A mother who birthed this child is sending her messages. No man is going to want to touch you. No man wants to do this to you. You're a bitch. You're ugly. You've got a flat ass. Kill yourself. And so as soon as I was watching it, and I discussed this with my daughter because she knows about some of my Munchausen work. Many of you might remember in The Parasitic Mind, I talk about all of the victimology stuff and all of the trans stuff as a form, and many of these other phenomena as collective Munchausen and collective Munchausen by proxy. And the reason I was able to come up with this new, coined malady is because in 2010, I had published a paper in a medical journal where I was offering a Darwinian analysis of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Okay. By the way, so for those of you who don't know, Munchausen syndrome is where you feign an illness yourself so that you can garner the sympathy and empathy. And now you could see again how this led eventually to me writing about now suicidal empathy, right? So that's Munchausen syndrome. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is when you take someone who is under your care, typically your biological child, but it could be your pet, it could be your elderly parent, and then you harm them so that you can get by proxy the sympathy and empathy. Oh, poor you have a child that's suffering from cancer, that has diabetes. So imagine what a demonic, diabolical, psychiatric condition this is. Because, the most divine relationship, if I could put it this way, in nature is that between mother and offspring. And the reason I say that, it's not to romanticize mothers and to ostracize fathers. Human fathers are are extraordinary dads, right? We are a biparental species. But even within the human context, of course, we know that there's a thing called paternity uncertainty. There is no maternity uncertainty. So therefore, the relationship between mother and child is one that is very unique, right? So when it becomes that a mother is so psychiatrically damaged, so malignant in her narcissism, that she is more keen on getting the ego strokes associated with empathy and sympathy at the point of harming their own child to achieve that goal, that's something really, truly demonic, truly, I mean, satanic. And so as I was watching it yesterday, I was getting pissed because if you hear the woman speak, she was there, the woman was interviewed, she completely flips it. I mean, she was doing those things because it was her way to protect her daughter. Can you use simple words and explain to me, you degenerate, how it is that psychiatrically damaging your daughter to the point of getting her to try to commit suicide was actually you being a heroic mother? So as you watch her, your skin, crawls in ways that are unimaginable. So let's add this degenerate Satan into our list. A couple of more and then I'll wrap it up for today. Yesterday I taped a show with Congressman Randy Fine, great guy, Jewish, pro-Israel, not a fan of Islamic incursions into the United States. The chat is not up yet, but the reason I mention it is because I brought up to the congressman, what's up with all of these? Ilhan Omar enters in 2019 Congress. She has got negative net worth. Now she's worth, I don't know, $35 million. I think Justin Trudeau, in the Canadian context, I think he's now worth $350 million. Of course, Nancy Pelosi is the greatest stock picker in the history of the world. How is it possible that the same governments that take all of our money could be such thieves so openly? It really, one of the things about growing, aging, is that you truly do realize the power of the old adage, the more I know people, the more I love my dogs. It's simply unbelievable. So another thing that's pissing me off is seeing all of these politicians who are nothing but public servants, right? Who then end up quadrupling, tenfold increasing their net worth while they are still in office. So that's another thing that's pissing me off. And then I'll end with two things that are related to Islam. Let me first mention here Richard Grenell. Oh, yes. So Richard Grenell, who is, as far as I know, a pretty reasonable guy. I think he was U.S. ambassador to Germany and so on. He put out a tweet where he was very angry at Valentina Gomez, who is a woman, actually, I didn't remember I had met her. She had come up to me at Turning Point USA, the Charlie Kirk event, 2 years ago in Arizona, approached me. She was a big fan. So was her brother, took pictures with me and so on. And I saw her recently, doing all sorts of she's running for Congress. She did some rather incendiary things, forgive the pun, where she, was burning all sorts of books and so on, in some cases holy books. And we had agreed, okay, maybe you'll come on my show and so on. And I was frankly tentative about it because I knew that it was going to bring a lot of heat. But of course, I believe that in a free society, people have a right to shock. And I will talk more about this when I put up her chat. I will do an introductory monologue to explain some of my positions. But basically, Richard Grenell said, let me just read his tweet. He said, "Stop undermining the First Amendment to the Constitution established by our forefathers. The U.S. Constitution guarantees freedom of religion. You don't understand our freedoms very well." So what he's basically saying is, you're misusing freedom of speech by burning, in this case, the Quran. And this is what I responded to him. It shows you what a little weasel punk he is. I said, "Dear Mr. Richard Grenell, Do you think that all religions are equally congruent with the American Constitution? For example, do you think that if Islam were to be in the majority in the US, would our personal liberties and freedoms increase, stay unchanged, or decrease? Would gay people be more or less safe? And the reason why I brought up that example is because he is gay himself. To blindly state, quote, freedom of religion is astoundingly myopic. I may not support the manner by which Valentina Gomez delivers her message. I just hosted her on my show. But I believe that she has the right to express her disdain for any religion, ideology, or belief system. If tomorrow she decided that she wanted to burn the Torah, I'm Jewish, I might not like it, but I would support it. This is the price that you pay to live in a free society. It seems unthinkable to me that people could serve in the government and yet have such a poor understanding of what the First Amendment entails. The First Amendment entails precisely being blasphemous to religions. And that doesn't make it an infringement on freedom of religion. Because I could easily argue, is it your freedom of religion to pray all day long about the existential eradication of Jews? And yet those who do it say, hey, it's just part of my religion. So F off Richard Grenell or whatever his name, Grenell. And finally, let me talk about a tweet I posted, I think yesterday. It's gotten about 125,000 views so far. Let me read it for you. If women wish to have their identities erased by wearing black tents, it's their choice. Be empathetic. If noble people wish to pray on streets, sidewalks, and other public spaces, it's their choice. Be empathetic. If noble people wish to impose their religious dietary rules on the rest of us, it's their choice. Be empathetic. If noble people pray for your eradication, it's their choice. Be empathetic. If noble people rape your children, it's their choice. Be empathetic. If noble people consistently exhibit abject hatred for everything that your society stands for, it's their choice. Freedom of religion. Be empathetic. Lesson: the most noble goal of the West is to exhibit unrestrained kindness, compassion, tolerance, and empathy. Collective suicide by empathy is the path to orgiastic moral purity. Are you ready for suicidal empathy? So there you have it, folks. A lot of things are pissing me off. I've given you about 10, 11 of those. Please keep fighting. Don't walk away from battles. Don't leave it on the shoulders of others to fight on your behalf. Don't be a coward. We're not asking you to all be superheroes, but we're asking you to not be like the antiquarian bookseller. We're asking you not to be like Richard Grenell. We're asking you not to be like the degenerate Malcom Gladwell. Have honor, have dignity. Men and women are not the same. Little girls should not share their private spaces with degenerates who have 9-inch penises and call themselves girls. Be logical. Have common sense. And lastly, head off and subscribe to my exclusive content. It's a small way to support those that take all the risks to defend our liberties and freedoms. And you can also, if you don't have the $5 or $6 a month that it costs to subscribe, which you should because that's the price of a latte, then just go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's free. Subscribe to my podcast. Those things matter. Because when a next book deal comes along and the publisher says, hey, how big is your platform? I mean, at this point, they all know me, but it matters to have a big soapbox from which one can spread ideas. So it costs you nothing. Subscribe, follow me on Instagram, follow me on my public Facebook page, subscribe to my YouTube channel and my podcast, subscribe for a very small nominal fee for exclusive content on X. I must say that I've been remiss in the past few weeks in providing exclusive content. I'll try to make it up to my subscribers. I wish you all a good night. My children and wife are now waiting for me to go for a little coffee, although it's getting dark here. By the way, one last thing. For those of you who don't know, I accepted to be a visiting scholar this year at Ole Miss at University of Mississippi, the Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom. Their Twitter handle is at UM for University of Mississippi Declaration. So UM as in mother, UM Declaration. Please give them a follow. Let's show them some love. They're trying to instill in our kids and our university students the values of American exceptionalism, Judeo-Christian ethics, all of the deontological principles that make the West in general and the United States in particular great. So give them a follow, spread the word. I wish you all a good night. I wish it was worth your 45 minutes. Thank you for coming, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers, everybody.